Welcome to Getting to Know Your Indiana Neighbor. And I know I say every neighbor is unique. A year ago, he really wasn't even our neighbor or barely in the area, but many of you have heard of his story. Many of you heard his name if you've watched the news recently, local news in particular, social media. Scott Highberger, the founder of Behind the Wire Ministries, movie producer, Pardoned by Grace, the movie, author, Behind the Wire. And Scott's our Indiana neighbor. Welcome, Scott. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Good to be here with you.
Well, let's first. There's a whole story, and many of you may have seen the movie. Some of you have read the book. Others know the story, and a little bit of background. But for those of you who don't, the church that we are in right now is called Behind the Wire Ministries. And Scott, before it was Behind the Wire Ministries, people will recognize it as a church. I'm not sure they knew what it was, but what was the name of the church prior to?
Trinity Gospel Tabernacle Church.
Trinity Gospel Tabernacle Church, right across from Bowling Manufacturing, the old textile. But you won't recognize the grounds. We'll talk about that as well. But before we get into the meat of the story, I guess, if you will, as to how this all came about and came to fruition, Scott, let's talk a little bit about your mission here at Behind the Wire Ministries, how this came about, and how in the world you ended up in our town in Lagodi, Indiana.
That's an interesting story. But about a year and a half ago, I was ministering in a prison, a Branchville Correctional Facility, and I was in there sharing my story, and there was someone in there that it really affected, and they had family that were around this area. And so, I didn't know anything about any of this, that he had been affected. I never even met the guy. And then his family didn't know that. And they began to follow me online and on social media, my wife and I, in the prison system. And then they actually, a local family knew the board member that was over this church and found out that this church was dissolving. And so that family member of the person that was incarcerated, thought of us, said, hey, maybe I should reach out to them and see if they might be interested in meeting this board member and get into conversations with them about us having it. So we're like, wow, yeah, let's check it out. So my wife and I came out to the area. We walked the grounds with the board member and the family, and we just began to see, this place was in, it needed a lot of work all around the campus, but we had vision for it. My wife and I seen the potential of what it could be. And long story short, we said that we would agree to it. And so we got an attorney, and we began to do the paperwork process of the church transferring their assets to our nonprofit 501c3. And so in that process, the family, there was a balance on this property. There was a $30,000 balance still left on this property, and they felt like that they wanted to make a donation to our organization for the exact amount that the property, the balance for the property.
Yeah.
So as the church is transferring their assets to us, instead of having a $30,000 balance on it, we're taking over this property with a $0 balance. So it was a huge blessing for us, just to, all of it, everything about it, hearing about it, getting here, the donation, and then just the potential of everything that could happen here. So basically, my wife and I began to really brainstorm and visioneer on just how we were going to do exactly what we wanted to do, and just we brought some contractors in to kind of give us estimates on the things that we were thinking. And then over about a 9-month period, we went to work, and my wife and I invested about $200,000 into the property to transform it from where it was to a transitional program for men coming out of incarceration. So that's where it's at.
And this was how long ago that opportunity came up?
That opportunity came up in November of last year,
Just a year and a half ago, less than that.
a year and a month.
A year and a month. You're right. Yeah, we're very recent. Where was your home prior to that? Prior to this?
Okay, so we are from Northwest Indiana. So we come from Chesterton, Michigan City. I was born in Michigan City, Indiana, for the first 12 years of my life, and then the rest I was from Chesterton, Indiana. That's
Mhm.
where I actually met my wife, was in Chesterton.
So, Lagodi, Indiana. You at the time were going around the state ministering to inmates, maybe around the country ministering to inmates. So you had no thought at that time of having your own church?
No. So had worked in church ministry for nearly 10 years at that point. 8 of those years was in prison ministry around the state and around the country. And so that was always a missing part of our ministry as we worked for a church, you know. And so it's just having that place for them to go because we're ministering to men and women and juveniles all around the state, and they would get a hold of us, we'd have conversations, but it wasn't the same to really help them in the way that we really wanted to help them when they got out because that's a critical point, that transition home from incarceration to the community. So that was a big hole in our mission that we saw. So, and we were always thinking someday, you know, we would like to get something like what we have right now, but it wasn't even on our immediate plan at that point. Our immediate plan was we were actually going to go full time. We were going to be we were literally going to be transitioning ourselves from working for a church to going fully into our prison organization behind the wire ministries in January. You know, that 2 months from then we were going to go fully into our organization to do that. And then this phone call happened and brought us here, and we're like, wow, well, like this is like right on time for exactly what we've been wanting to do. We didn't know that it was going to happen that quickly because we're just going to continue to do prison ministry. But now we're continuing to do prison ministry, but we have the transitional housing for the men that are coming out of incarceration.
So you were coming in and out of incarceration many, many times during your life,
Mm-hmm.
during your adult life in particular. Did you even have the opportunity for transitional housing? And if so, would that have made a difference in your life?
It would have. I did, you know, but what I like to tell a lot of people, it's ready when it's ready. The person is ready when they're ready. And I went to a lot of different places, but they were unhealthy places. They weren't places that you know, even in my addiction, even in all of my dysfunction, I could still tell if something was legitimate or not. You know, you know, I wasn't blind, and I stayed at a lot of different places, whether it be homeless shelters or halfway houses, and it always seemed like it just something didn't seem right about them, even though that I wasn't right and I wasn't ready at that point. But I think if I would have landed in a healthy environment, you know, to get the help that I truly needed, I think that I could have made the turn. But I needed to also get to that point when I was ready to receive the help, you know, and so I did, you know, at the end of my criminal, you know, drug and alcohol lifestyle, you know, when I got to the end of myself and I started heading in the right direction, then I got all this help that I needed from a lot of people, unexpected people that I didn't know.
So transitional housing, and you have the housing here on the grounds,
Mm-hmm.
which houses how many in transition?
Right now, we have a capacity of 12, but over the next 30 days, we're converting our parsonage into 8-man housing. So in 30 days from now, we'll go from a 12-man capacity to a 20-man capacity facility.
So the community sees these people who were in prison coming into our area, coming into this neighborhood, but they're not incarcerated people anymore. They've served their time. They're looking for a way to get back into society.
Right.
Is that a good way to describe it as to what you're doing here?
Yes, you know, and the thing is that they're coming into the communities because most of the people that are here right now are either from Daviess County or Martin County, so they're going to be around. You know, most of them are from here, so and most of them will be from here because we want to work very closely with Martin County, which we are, and we want to work very closely with Daviess County, and we are, and because there's a whole community of people that are in a cycle and they're getting incarcerated and they're coming back into the community. And, you know, we're here now to help them make the transition that maybe they couldn't otherwise because they get themselves in a position just like I was, where you burn all the bridges, you've been in and out, you know, people that love you, your family, they just got to kind of love you from a distance for good reason. And then they get to a point where maybe they are hungry for a change. Maybe they've been through a lot in their lives and they're ready to make a turn, but they've burned all the bridges and they don't really have that support. They get out with the clothes on their back. They don't have any money. 9 times out of 10, they don't have a driver's license. They don't have a car. And, you know, they don't have an ID. They don't have nothing. They want to start, but they don't have that. They put themselves in a very low position to not really have a good odds to get out. We're, my wife and I are looking very closely at men that are ready to make the turn. And we want to help them transition from being destructive to being productive, to be additions in the community, to complement the community. And so that's really the heartbeat of what we're doing. And we know that it can be done. I tell these guys that I am 100% certain that you can change your life, that you can make the transition. And my hope for you is you would begin to believe that for yourself while you're here.
So once they're, first of all, it's men only at this
Yes.
point, but what commitment do they have to make to be able to come into your housing? And at what point do you feel comfortable
Mhm.
in them going wherever they want to go?
So on the front end, we have an application pretty laid out, exactly, what the questions that we're asking, and then we do a background check, and we want to look at their history and kind of see where they're at, see what they've done. There's certain charges and things like that we won't accept because we're a family-friendly environment,
Mhm.
and so we're very careful about that. And then I interview them, and if the application looks okay, their background looks okay, then I'll interview them face to face, hopefully. If they're far away, then I would over the phone, but locally, I'm going to go there and I want to see them. I want to look at them and I want to talk to them. And I have a pretty extensive evaluation that I take them through to ask all the questions that I believe that to find out if the person is really going to be ready for what we're going to do. Because I talk a lot about challenges and just that this is going to be a very challenging environment, that we're going to challenge your way of thinking, your way of life, the way you've been doing things aren't working with your life, and we want to show you a different way, a better way. And so we go through that whole process, and by the end of it, then my wife and I discuss it, and then we make a decision. It's always going to be a step of faith, but we want to put our best foot forward when we're accepting someone here, because we don't want them to negatively affect the other guys here too. So we're doing something it's unique. It's not unique like in the world. It's just it's unique. We have a focus on what we're looking for, the people that we want to help, and there's places for everything. And this place is for guys that's been in a lot of trouble, that's hungry for a change, that want to make a turn for their life in the right direction, and we want to help them do that.
So if you've got 12 men out there, and I don't care if you have them in the armed forces or where have you,
Mm-hmm.
if they're all bunking in the same area,
Mm-hmm.
you have potential for conflict, no matter what type of people you
Right.
have. The people you have in here are used to conflict.
Right.
What challenges does that present to you and Danielle, or have you seen that conflict so far?
There's always going to be growing pains with all of
Mhm.
them, and I call them challenges.
Yeah.
There's always going to be challenges that they're going to face, and all of them are differently. And then as they arise, we have a residential handbook. They go through an orientation with my wife. My wife Danielle is the program director here, and so she oversees that stuff. And part of it is the orientation and the intake, and on the front end, really going through all of our rules and our policies and our procedures, and getting them to be aware of that. And they're signing off on every page, so the expectation is laid. And then when the challenge comes and they've got to follow through on one of these different rules, and they're not, then we're coming to bring that to them, and we're having a conversation. And if we have to give them a disciplinary report, we will. And we're just and there's sanctions with it. There's ways that not only are they going to get a disciplinary report, but then there's going to be goals set on there. This is what you're going to do, and sanctions and things like that, and just to help them. And what I really emphasize a lot, my wife and I both, is that we're not trying to do behavior modification here. We're looking for transformation. We want the heart change to happen. And so that's where we're at, where you change a person's thinking, their heart, that's when the true life change happens. Like, we don't want you to come here and modify your behavior and follow the rules and then just leave here. We tell them we won't let you, because we are looking very closely at each one of them individually, and we're setting a course for them with goals that we're going to challenge them all along the way to get out of their comfort zone. Like, you're not going to come here and lower your head, follow all the rules, and then graduate that doesn't mean anything. and go on and just continue to do what you were doing and maybe bypass a prison sentence, a jail sentence, things like that. We're not going to allow that to happen. We want to see true life change happening, and we know what we're looking for, so we're going to challenge them along the way to make that life change. So when they leave here, even if they were to go back and do things again, they will leave here different. They will leave here better than they came in, and that's a big goal of what we're doing here.
You used the term graduation.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that they do and then the length of time where graduation would take place?
Okay, so there's three different phases. The first phase is 45 days. It's phase one, and in that, we outsource licensed therapists to meet with them individually every week. We talk about trauma, mental health things of that nature. We have intensive outpatient matrix classes that really focus on rehabilitation, substance abuse, and those kind of things. Socialization class where it teaches them how to interact socially with people and just how to live. All the normal stuff that a lot of people just kind of are raised up into. A lot of the guys that are in the system that's been there, they haven't really been socialized correctly. They haven't grown up in a healthy environment or a neighborhood or area, or they didn't have the kind of parental leadership that they needed. So we deal with that. We deal with uh, therapy with MRT that helps them to change their criminal way of thinking. We have criminal and addictive thinking classes. We have Christian classes that focus on just the fundamentals of Christianity when they're it's called 10 Steps Towards Christ, and it's just a really foundational, and it's really helping them with their life skills, helping them with budgeting, um, financially. When they get into phase two, we help them with all of that kind of budgeting. And but on the front end as well, they come here, they usually they're not going to have a driver's license or an ID. They're not going to have a birth certificate. They're not going to have a social security card. They're not going to have insurance. And in the first 45 days, we help them to do all that, to get all those things that they're needing. So not only are they going through a lot of different classes, but they're also getting ready to start working. Because on phase two, we're going to help them find a job. We've just formed a relationship recently with Jasper Engines, and they're going to start employing our guys. We've already got 3 there, and 2 more is going to start working there here in the next couple of weeks. And so we transport back and forth to work. We help them get the job, and then we're helping them budget and save money. And then they also have classes in the evening that they're focusing on. That's where their MRT classes are. Then they have chapel services with us every week. We also attend our Redemption Christian Church on Sundays together. And then phase three, they would get a little bit more responsibility. They got some different leadership classes that we're taking them through. They're saving money, they're working, and then we're going to be looking into making that transition from us onto their own 2 feet, that when they leave us, when they do graduate, when they do fulfill all of the obligations that we have, they'll be ready to, hopefully in 9 months, up to 2 years is what we give them, to get their own place, to get their own vehicle. And so we're setting them up to stand on their own 2 feet. We're not going to give them a handout. We want to give them a hand up. So this whole process is taking them through a transition to give them a hand up to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and to be able to continue to help them after they graduate and they're out there as well.
So 9 months to 2 years. So you really haven't had time yet to see a graduation.
Right.
Is that fair? So once they graduate, they're gone?
They're going to move out into their own place, and we're going to help them do it.
Very good. All right. So let's talk. You talked about environment. Let's talk about your environment a little bit growing up. If you don't know the story, it's an amazing story, amazing turnaround in life. And Scott, we certainly applaud you for that. But it's been a difficult road to a certain point in your life. Tell me about your upbringing, your family life, and kind of where you felt like you got started on that, and maybe why that criminal life, if anybody would know that.
My household was a little dysfunctional, and I grew up in Michigan City, Indiana, near a really rough area. So I went to a pretty bad school I was one of the only white kids in school. So
Mhm.
if you reverse that in any
Yeah.
other race, it's going
Yeah.
to be rough either way.
Right.
So I was running around in a really rough school, and there was just a lot of fighting going on. I was just a really angry
Mhm.
kid, and I just became, like Dennis the Menace around town, and just really destructive. I was the kid that was just constantly into something about the neighborhood. I'm sure all the neighbors wish that we would just move away. We ended up moving away when I was 12, but those first years were just in a lot of trouble. I would go around breaking into houses, and I used to break into the zoo in Michigan City in the evenings and steal money, change out of the wishing well. I mean, I was that kid. I mean, it was
Mhm.
pretty ridiculous. Just fighting all the time. And then I got my first arrest when I was 12 years old. I started drinking at 12, got arrested when I was 12 years old, and I got into that cycle of just being
Mhm.
incarcerated. Everybody knew me at the juvenile detention center because I was just a frequent flyer there. And they used to, when I would come in, they would all kind of yell to me, and they wouldn't say Scott, they would say Ralphie, because my whole childhood and just on even into my adulthood that I was like the stunt double for the Christmas Story
Oh boy,
Ralphie.
yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So if I showed you a side by side, you'd be
Yeah.
cracking
Well,
up
we'll
pretty
find one.
hard.
We'll find one. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
hilarious.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I look just like that
Yeah.
kid. And so yeah, I was a really crazy, wild little kid that looked like Ralphie from the Christmas Story,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
pretty
But
terrible.
everybody's wondering right now, where were your parents? What type of parents did you have to where even in that environment,
Hmm.
were you hard to control, or did they even try to control you?
They were. I was raised by my mother and my stepfather. My mother and father got divorced when I was 2, and so she married another man maybe about a year later. So from 3 on up. So it's, my earliest memories are with my mother and my stepdad. My father moved to Florida after the divorce, and he's pretty much lived there his whole life since
Hmm.
then. So we had a very small relationship all growing up with my real dad. So I was raised by my stepdad, and my stepdad we just never really connected. He was a tough guy, He was a biker, and we just didn't really connect, But he was a solid guy. I mean, he worked every day, he took care of the family, but we didn't really have a relationship too much. And my mom, she was there for me, but I think that they were more into themselves and in my growing up. So I was really running around a lot, unsupervised. My
Hmm.
my childhood was a lot of just out into the town. I mean, I'm 7, 8 years old, and I think about this now, like just trying to think about this with other children, like 7, 8 years old running around town. I'm miles away for hours. 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, just getting into things, just all around the city. So I just didn't have that supervision that I needed. I was very rebellious. My dad was pretty quiet until I did something big, and then the belt would come out, and that was pretty much our relationship. I was
Hmm.
always up to something bad, and then he would come in and discipline, and then my mom was just kind of, she was there. She loved me, very fiercely, but at the same time, she just wasn't. They weren't there like to supervise and to be that leadership that I needed as a child.
Are they still around? Your mom, stepdad, your dad, and if so, do you have a connection with any of them?
My stepdad still lives up north. My mother passed away about 7, 8 years ago, and my real dad lives in Florida right now. So I talk to both of
Hmm.
them a little bit here and there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Did you? I assume you didn't make it through high school, did you, at that
No.
time, because you were probably constantly going to
Right.
juvenile detention or what have you?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I ended up got a GED when I was 17 in juvenile prison,
Okay.
and so never finished high school. Ended up in juvenile prison. Ended up getting that GED,
Hmm.
and then later on in prison, for another prison sentence as an adult, I got an associate's degree from Indiana State University. So I was finding my way, and then I just graduated from Grace College in May, got a bachelor's from there, and I'm currently now working on my master's degree at Wheaton College right now. I just finished the hardest semester of my life, on top of launching this ministry
Masters in.
in biblical and theological studies. Yeah,
Okay, so you're doing that. All right. Well,
yeah.
congratulations. Good for you.
Yeah.
That's not easy to do at any age.
Right.
Uh, any idea how many what the number of arrests you've had?
About 35.
About 35.
Yeah. But
About
who's
35.
counting?
Well, we're done counting, right? We're done counting. Felony charges and all sorts.
Yeah.
I know there were drugs. I'm sure there were alcohol-related break-ins. Uh, is it anything and everything outside of murder, or what can you
Yeah,
share with us?
yeah. It was my pretty much my MO. You know, I've got a pretty long record, but my MO was getting drunk, doing dumb stuff all the time. You
Mhm.
know, and fighting with the police was like my normal thing as a juvenile. You know, like a normal kid and a teenager. You're underage drinking at a party. You know, in a normal situation. Well, I don't. That's not normal. Kids shouldn't be drinking, right? But
But
we're
it
at a
happened.
but we're at a party. You're
Yeah,
at parties and we're teenagers in high school, and the police come and everybody's running, and I'm standing fighting. You know, like that
yeah,
was my
yeah.
craziness. You know, so that was kind of like so I just got a lot of I've sold drugs. I've had
Mhm.
selling drugs. I stole a 6 pack of beer from a gas station one time. You know, I ran out with it. Just DUIs,
Mhm.
resisting, fighting with the police, stole a cab before, like just all kinds of just ridiculous things that were just
Mhm.
nonstop. I was just always into something, but usually I was drunk with a stupid idea, and then I always magnified it because I was just such an angry, wild kid, and even into my adulthood that alcohol would come in, and then it just would loosen up the boundaries, and then I'd just be kind of wide open doing
Mhm.
all kinds of dumb stuff, and then usually the things that I was doing wasn't the really bad things. The bad things would happen when the police would get called, and then I would magnify it, try to take off and run from them, resist, get a felony for that. Take a swing at the police officer, get a felony for that. When all it would have been is like a public intox misdemeanor or something,
Mhm.
and then I would turn it into
Right.
a whole lot of
Yeah.
trouble.
So they got to know you pretty well, the
Oh
law.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of those couple of the arrests I want to bring up because I know as you think back, it's just hard to fathom. And in your book, you talk about how you just can't believe you did some of these things, but people do. And
Hmm.
the one in particular, your ex-girlfriend granted you one night of visitation
Yes.
with your 18 months old son. You drove to a crack house, parked the car, locked your son inside, went to buy drugs.
Hmm.
Tell me how that night and the result of that night impacted you at that time.
That was the low point of my life. I think that's where I got to the lowest. If I would factor that, if I would try to measure my life, I think that would be the low, the
Hmm.
place that I got to the lowest. And I was in a mess of my life. I had 30 something arrests on my record at that time. I was granted, my son's mother let me have him for the night. Within a few hours, I ended up getting some alcohol, got
Hmm.
drunk, and as soon
So
as I got
you
drunk,
had no intention.
no,
You had every intention of having your child
yes,
for the evening,
yes,
and then a drink, drugs,
all of that.
all that happened.
Hmm.
And if I'm right in reading at that stage, that led you to consider suicide.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I actually tried. I took a bunch of pills, and I took a bunch of pills, and then I drank a bunch of alcohol, and I passed out, and I thought I was going to be dead. And I woke up, and I was alive, and I was shocked. I woke up like 5, 6 hours later without a hangover or like I had taken any drugs, which was it was a miracle because I should have been dead. And it scared me, that I woke up, it's like I had new felonies hanging over my head. I had just, put my son at risk of locking him in a car, driving out to a bad neighborhood, drunk, under the influence, smoking crack, and now I can't see my son again. I tried to kill myself, and that didn't work. I got all these felonies on my past. I got current felonies hanging over my head with prison time, and it was just a terrible, terrible, crushing moment in my life that I wanted to die, and it still
Were
didn't
you
work.
angry that you did not die? Or did you take it at that time as an awakening, as a miracle, as you put it?
Yeah, I thought it was a miracle, but it's still I was afraid,
Yeah.
because I didn't know what to do next. because that
Mhm.
wasn't on the plan. My plans weren't very long. I didn't have very long-winded plans at all. My life pretty much was no rhyme or reason, no real target. My life was on a whim. I just kind of went as I went. But when I decided to try to take my life, I was thinking that was it. So
Mhm.
I just woke up and didn't know what to do. I ended up calling my father in Florida and ended up going down there and just began.
He reluctantly let you come, right?
And he reluctantly let me come down there, and then within 24 hours I was drunk and he kicked me
Mhm.
out,
Yeah.
and then I began a homeless existence living out on the street.
Yeah, I don't remember in the book reading anything about normal jobs.
Mhm.
How did you support your life? How did you support your habits? I'm sure part of that was selling drugs, but you had to have money to survive several years. How
Mhm.
did that come about?
I just went from job to job. I had all kinds of different
Okay.
jobs, and I could always talk myself into, getting a job
Yeah.
because even though I was really messed up, I always looked like Ralphie. So
Yeah. Yeah.
people
Yeah.
they
He
give me a
doesn't. He
chance.
doesn't look like it, and that goes to show you that it's not
Right,
always what you look like, right?
right.
Yeah. Another one that I wanted to bring up, and this is just, do you have a relationship with your son today?
I do, but we just talk very, very little right now. It's just,
Hmm.
it's just kind of,
How old would he be?
he is 16.
16.
Yeah,
Okay, interesting age.
yeah,
Do you feel like he's on a good path?
yeah. He's on a way different path than I am.
Okay,
Yeah,
good, good.
yeah.
And where is he located?
He's up in Northwest Indiana still.
All right, very good. But another one I wanted to talk about among the many I know, but this you hear about this from time to time, and this is the one where you walk into a stranger's house,
Hmm.
took off your shirt, shoes, made yourself comfortable, fell asleep on the couch, completely unaware you'd ever done so until you were arrested and ended up in jail.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty wild. I mean,
Yeah,
I was that drunk that I went into the wrong house.
oh, this is the wrong house. Okay,
I
all
went
right.
into
This
the wrong
wasn't a
house. I thought I was going to my dad's house, I guess.
okay,
And I
okay.
went into this house and just took my clothes off like I was at home
Hmm.
and then lay down on the couch and went to sleep. And I woke up in the in the jail
Yeah,
with knots on my head. So
somebody got you.
somebody was
Yeah,
probably hitting me on the head with something trying to get me up and out of their house.
yeah,
The
yeah.
people
Can
at the
can you imagine?
yeah.
Yeah, but you do hear of that occasionally, and like you said, it was kind of a mistaken house. You thought you were going into a house that wasn't yours. So all right, but I thought that was interesting as well. Um, so while you're in prison, you find God,
Mhm.
and you truly find God in your
Mhm.
eyes,
Mhm.
and you preach the word of God in
Mhm.
prison.
Mhm.
Once you're released, your addiction overcomes you time
Mhm.
and time again.
Right.
So even though you found God,
Mhm.
you didn't get that help that you felt like you had to have to live right.
Right.
Is that fair?
Yeah. Basically, I had the relationship with God, but I didn't get connected with God's people, with the church, and just really get that community of people. And that took a couple more prison sentences where I had started the relationship with God, but I needed a lot of help, just practical help of people around me to help me go in the right direction, because I didn't have those people. And it took quite a bit more, probably about 5 more years of just going, getting worse and worse in my life before I got out of prison the last time. And then I got connected to a church within a week. And then all the things started it started working out. It was a very challenging thing because like I told you earlier before this meeting, it's very hard for a person to get started when they've burned every bridge. Pushed everybody they never cared about on the side, and they start out with the clothes on their back. There's no money, there's no driver's license, there's no car, there's no place to live. It's like it's almost impossible when you get yourself to that position to begin, and you need a lot of help in the beginning. You really do.
Yeah, and it takes unique people to help people like you.
Yeah,
And a couple of those, I think, were the people who wrote the forward in your book and
they
gave you an
were.
opportunity at that church, and
Hmm.
and saw something in you even before they knew your criminal history. But when they found that out, apparently you have proved yourself worthy enough that
Hmm.
that they felt like they would give you a try. And that was the last time you were In prison, is that right? Once you were out, that was it. And what year was that? Would that have been?
2012.
2012. So 10 years ago.
Hmm.
Okay. So where did you live at that point?
So I lived with my brother
Okay.
for a few months, and he drinks, in which, you know, he can, if that's what he wants to do. He wants to do it. It's his house, but that was bad for me. So I
Right.
ended up going to a halfway house for a few months
So,
just to
so,
get
so you recognized that it was bad for you, and you had the willpower and the strength to say, I can't live here.
right.
I need to move. We need to move elsewhere.
Hmm. Yeah. So I ended up moving into a halfway house that wasn't like this, but it was a healthy place to be, that had a little bit of programming and whatnot. And then that began to get me going in the right direction. And then when I felt like I was stronger, I ended up going back to my brother's house for probably about 6 more months. And then I ended up moving out from that point. But I needed about a year uh, to get to that point where I could get out there on my own. I ended up meeting my wife, and we ended up getting married. Probably about a year after
How did you meet Danielle?
I met her in a Bible study at the church. So met ended up laying right across the table from her
Okay. Okay.
in a study,
Yeah.
and we got married. Like it was very short after that. I mean, we just kind of knew, and it was probably maybe 4 or 5 months.
Did you have the same vision at that point
Absolutely,
as far as spreading the word?
we're in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
Our lives, we had both been single for quite a long time, for years, and we were both really committed to God and the life that we wanted to live for God, and we just saw that together, and we just before we even got married, we started doing groups within the church together. We were already in that direction.
But people just don't get to sobriety, drugs, alcohol by themselves, at least not easy. Did you do it by yourself?
No, I needed God's help, and I needed the help of others.
So was it program? They weren't programs that you went through, Alcoholic Anonymous,
I
Anonymous,
did.
those things. You did.
I did. I
So
went
so
to
you did all of those
I
things.
did NA and AA. I went to all of it.
Yeah.
They say they told me to do 90 meetings in 90 days. I did 200 meetings in 180 days.
Felt that strongly about it.
I walked to the meetings. I rode a bicycle. I didn't let not having a driver's license or a car stop me. I was riding my bike to church 8 miles to help every week. Even if it was snowing or raining or in the early morning, like I was hungry to change. And people began to see that. And that's what I like to say is that God gave me a new set of people to help me.
So in 2012, when you were basically out on your own,
Hmm.
um, you weren't working at a particular job, a normal job, I guess. You were actually ministering to prisoners. Is that fair, or is that right, or did you have a job?
No, so I worked. My brother owns a concrete company, and I was working for him as a laborer
Okay.
for a while at first, and then after I was out of prison for a year, then I became an intern at that church, and then I began my life in ministry then, and it was a full-time job. It was a paid position, but it was still an intern job. Didn't pay very much, but
Yeah.
it wasn't supposed to.
Right.
It was a great opportunity for me, and I didn't care about that. And so we sacrificed, my wife sacrificed too, that I would make this little bitty intern paycheck because she's seen, where God was leading.
Then what did that lead to? The little bitty paycheck as an intern. What did that lead to next?
That led to applying to get into a prison.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
You're now applying to get into a prison,
Not thinking it would ever happen.
not thinking, really? So
Yeah,
when you
because I had
apply,
all those arrests, it's like, are they really going to let a guy like me come back?
but wouldn't the thought also be a guy like you is the one who can relate to guys like these?
A lot of institutions don't think like that.
Yeah.
And so, and it was a miracle that ended up happening. The prison that I had actually done 3 different prison sentences in this prison. And that was the first one that I got into. And then we just began to have some classes, then we did some services. And before you know it, we're in doing multiple groups and services, both my wife and I together. And then it just began to build from there. We went into another prison and another prison, and just I graduated the first internship of the year, and that first year is about being trained to and responsibility of yourself. Can you manage your life? Can you be responsible for your life and to do the things that are set before you? I graduated the first year, and I could go on and apply to the second year. And the second year was about leadership. It was about, can I be responsible for others and build in that way. So, and I graduated both 2 years and ended up being invited to come on to the leadership team. And within 2 years, I was a licensed pastor on staff, and I became the prison pastor. And my wife and I at that time were probably in about 10 prisons, and we began to reach thousands of men and women behind the wire.
What's the reception like when you go to a prison? Most of the people, and this is total assumption on my part, haven't found God or followed God. But there you are preaching his word, and your hope, of course, is to have a room full of people.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what typically happens?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
There's an attraction there because I was them, and they see, and they're looking for something that's real.
Mhm.
I tell people all the time I'm a Christian, and I'm like, people argue with the Bible all the time. You can argue with verses, is it true, is it real,
Right.
And this, that, and the other. And I say, but you can't argue with a changed life. There's a man or a woman that was like this, and now they're like that. There's something that's happened. There's something different, and that change attracts people. They want to come and see, and that's what people do in the prison system. They do. They want to come and see. They hear about the record. I tell people, my record has become my resume.
Yep.
Because that's the credibility that I bring into the prison system to these men and women, that they're willing to come and see and listen because of the credibility I have because of my record. And then there it is, and then they begin their own journey,
Mm-hmm. Yes, so it's not easy to get started, but your catchphrase is you get started by getting started. I mean, it sounds simple, but how do you apply that with I'll use the word hardened criminals, but with people, they're human beings. How do you apply that and get them to buy in? All you have to do is get started.
Yeah. And so many people want to do most people want to do something, that's meaningful, that's significant, that they want to leave some kind of legacy. They want to make an impact. But people just never get started. They have a dream, they have a vision, they have an idea. There's so many books that never get read. There's so many businesses that never get started because people never just get started. And I tell them to just start moving in that direction. You just share the quote that I say. I have it printed on shirts. People say, Scott, I want to change my life. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to make the turn. What do I do? And I say, you get started by getting started.
Mm-hmm.
Start moving in that direction, and you will get directed as you go. You're not going to have all the answers in the beginning. You're not going to have it all figured out. But if you start moving in that direction of your dream, things will begin to start happening. People will start coming around that you haven't met yet, resources that weren't there, you'll run into them. It's just you start getting in motion, and then the dream starts to be realized.
Do you have people today that stay in contact with you that you changed their life, or at least the concept that you have changed their life?
I believe that, yeah, that there's people that I talk to that I believe that I have affected their life, but more than ever, it's God affecting their life, but that I've had a small part in their, I just had a guy, we just did a prison event at Plainfield Correctional Facility, and I brought a guy in that I have been ministering to in Westville Correctional Facility while he was in there for 3 years. And now he's been out for 4, and he got approved to come into prison, and he's out there helping lead worship and testifying in the prison. I mean, so there's not going to be a lot of them because a lot of people just they don't have that hunger, but when they do, they do.
Yeah. So how did the movie? There's a movie called Pardoned by Grace. Stars Michael W. Smith, a gospel icon, right?
Yeah.
And Joey Lawrence, who some of you might remember from Blossom, but he's been in more than that, Dancing with the Stars and other things. But how in the world did all of that even get started? Where'd the idea come from?
So I wrote the book Behind the Wire: A Prisoner's Journey to the Pulpit, and that actually happened through a lot of different people. I'll give you the shortest version I can of this, but so a lot of people were really after me, like, you got to write a book, and I'm like, how do you do that?
Yeah, get started.
So yeah, you get started by getting started. So I did. So it was a long process. It took me about 2 years, but we ended up getting it out. And about a year after that, people are constantly on me too, like, your life is a movie. Your life is a movie. You need to do something about it. Help people, inspire people. You've been through a lot. You're doing a lot of good work. Like you should, you should try to look into it. So I ended up getting a hold of some faith-based movie production companies, and just started opening up some conversation. I went on this journey of how do you even do that, trying to find it out. It was a long process of even how to try to even get a hold of these places. Like it's a whole thing,
Yeah.
try to get a hold of these kind of people.
It's a process to the process,
Yeah,
right?
it is. There's a lot to it, man.
Yeah.
And so I ended up getting a hold of some of these people and talking to them, and then I ended up driving out to Nashville and meeting with the president, Dr. Ben Graham of Graham Family Films. He's actually the grandson of the late Billy Graham.
No kidding.
And he has a church. He's the senior pastor of a church, and he's from the whole Graham family. He's a pastor, and he's also a movie producer. And him and I started to get into conversations, and then we ended up striking a deal and signing the contract with them. And then they agreed to take this movie on, to do a story about my life. But the thing that was just, about it that's interesting too is that, there's this guy in my church that I didn't even really know. And he approaches me. He's like, I heard that they're going to be producing a film. And he's like, do you need an executive producer? And I was like,
Oh, wow.
what? I don't think so. I think that they got it all figured out, But
Yeah.
I didn't know what that meant at that time. I learned all this stuff about the movie industry too. But an executive producer, technically an executive producer is an investor, is really what they.
So yeah,
are.
we need an executive producer.
So he ended up saying that I would love to invest in this, and I was like, I don't think so, and I ended up talking to the movie production company, and then long story short, he ended up saying that I'd like to, invest $250,000 in helping this thing happen. So, and then he turns to me, and this is
he's living right now.
Yeah. So this is all shocking stuff. So
Yeah.
he's like, Scott, but he's like, but here's what I want you to know. He's like, I would love to invest $250,000 into this film and whatever. And he's like, you know what? And I don't even care if I get any of the money back. And he's like, I want you to know that I'm not investing in the movie. He says, I'm investing in you. And I believe in you.
Wow.
What God has done to your life. And that was like,
yeah.
Yeah,
that's amazing. but you were billed as a movie producer.
Yes.
And I would assume most of that is because you have to tell them what's going on in regards to your life, right? I mean, you have to be that person that keeps things accurate.
So I got a credit for being a movie producer because, like you said, I worked with the writers, the screenwriters. I didn't write anything. I just met with them over and over and over again. There was two different writers, and then I was on the set all the time. I was there when they were filming it and everything, and just kind of helped with any kind of ideas. I was just there available, helping with the storyline and the accuracy and all that. At the end of the day, they had the final say on everything, but I was there to assist them.
But Danielle had a little bit of a role in the movie?
Yeah, she played a bartender.
Yeah. I haven't seen the movie yet, but she did a good job?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
And I had a little cameo that I'm Joey Lawrence's cellmate.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look for that.
I got a one-liner in there, and I look so awkward. I'll just give you that. So like I'm not an actor.
What's the one line?
Good luck, preacher boy.
Good luck, preacher boy. I think I could do that. Good luck, preacher boy.
Yeah, but here's what it is though. So this, I've never done any of that kind of thing before. So they get all these cameras around you.
Yeah.
They get all these lights around you. They get all these people around you, and then they're like, act natural.
And you're really not talking to anybody, right? No. You're just saying, okay, good luck, preacher boy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, one take?
Yeah, it was like two takes.
Two takes?
But it's still, it was, yeah.
Well, what did Danielle think of the bartending gig?
She thought it was funny. All she just said, "Are you doing okay?" and walked by. So
it's easy enough, isn't it? How did, what was the process of getting Joey Lawrence, Michael W. Smith? I'm sure there were others. Did you have any? It was just casting, and they did that because he played you. Joey Lawrence did. So you didn't have a say in that, though. I
didn't have a say in that. They were looking for different people, and they were talking to a lot of different people. And Joey Lawrence was the one that they ended up, taking. And I talked to him a little bit, and things like that. But I didn't have any say in like who that they were going to do. But I was glad that it was him. I thought he did a good job. All that kind of thing. So
Did you feel like they did your story justice?
I do, and
Yeah.
it's just I found out that it's really hard. They've got to be very uh, precise on what they're going to use because 90 it's an hour and 42 minutes. So you got to think hour and 42 minutes of 40 years of life. So there's a lot that can be said, but they want to pick the right things
Right.
to make it the most beneficial. And basically, the first 2/3, what they wanted to do, their big goal is to show how bad I was, so you could see the contrast of the good, and the struggle that a lot of people that are in that cycle go through. So the first 2/3 of the movie is before I got into a relationship with God and all the stuff that was going on, and then the last third of the movie is when I made the turn and the things that happened after that. So they really wanted to depict how bad I was and to see the turn, the significance of the turn.
Was there anything once you saw the final cut that you wanted to be in there that wasn't, or um, that you'd rather have in there?
I don't think so. I think that they got in there, what I wanted them to depict. I think that they did a good job on
Yeah,
it.
and I know you had the premiere and you had some showings, Washington Theater.
Right.
It's shown around churches around the country on any given day. But is there a way that somebody can actually access the movie without attending one of those services or one of those showings?
It's gonna happen soon.
Okay.
In the next from January to like March, like I don't have the exact dates, but it's gonna transition from the Faith Con Network, like the what it's going through, the streaming that it's going through as like a version of a theatrical release, but then it's gonna go into online platform where you'll be able to buy the DVD like on Walmart or Amazon, and then the video will be involved in whatever other platform. I'm not sure exactly which ones that they're putting it on, but it will be over the next couple of months, it will be available like that where it can be purchased.
So, from the business side of it,
hmm
will you continue to benefit financially from that should it go forward, or did you already sign and say, I've got what I need?
No,
Okay.
I'm a part owner. I have
Okay.
a percentage of the film. So.
Well, good luck to you then.
Yeah.
And so, Pardoned by Grace, you'll see more about it, but I'm sure if you look it up, that's what I did, and you can find where it's showing. But I'm looking forward to seeing it. I just haven't been able to get those opportunities. You've shown it right here in this facility, did you
Right.
not? Yeah.
Absolutely.
By the way, so you celebrated your first birthday in this church, I guess,
Yes.
just a couple of weeks ago, maybe?
December 15th.
Less than a couple of weeks ago. Uh, that's a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah. Lots happened.
Yeah, lots happened. Is a lot going to happen in the next year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot
What do you see if you look 5 to 10 years out? That's too much. Let's look 2 to 5 years out for you and Danielle and your venture here. What do you see that you would like to happen?
Well, right now, like I said, after a year, um, we've been here a year, but we actually opened up the transitional housing in July. So we got the work in November of last year, and then we had our first service in December 15th. But from December 15th, we just had the church open to do weekly chapel services at night, and then in July is when we actually opened up the housing. So now we've opened up for 12 different spots available, and now we're already in the next 30 days we're going to expand from the 12 to the 20, and so this year is going to be focusing on really processing that out, getting that 20 people, really being able to help 20 people on this location. We get a lot of different people asking us about, are you going to have one of these facilities? We don't know, but we're open for it, and so we want to do good this in 2023. We want to do very well with the 20 on this location, and we are going to be looking, and available and open to expansion. Probably not here, because there's only so many that we want to have on one, so we can really give them the attention and the focus that they need. But if other properties, buildings come up, that will be open to looking at that. So we just want to continue to be faithful with what we're given, and we believe if we are, that we'll continue to be trusted with more. So that's our kind of our immediate, 1 to 2 year goal is to be faithful with the 20, and then also looking to expand, because one of the things that we want to do too is to have some houses around for guys that that still need help. You know, that let's say they graduate out of here and say they graduate in their 9 months and they still are staying here for a while, but then they want to get a little bit closer to being on their own. Maybe if we owned a few other houses around town, that could be that next step, that they could have a place with just maybe a couple of guys, and then we could, you know, keep them there for a while and still following all the rules, being accountable, all the things that we're doing, because we give breathalyzers every day, we give drug tests every week, you know, so we have a lot of oversight on everything that we're doing, and continue that oversight. But then they could have a little bit more freedom, a little bit closer to being on their own. And then when they feel like that they've got enough money saved in the bank, or they feel that they're solid enough, they're strong enough, then we can help them get into their own place. So that's kind of the 1 to 2 year goal at this point.
So the grounds here, we've seen many of the changes. We've seen the housing unit. We saw the fence being built.
Right.
Time you kind of had to peek over to see what's going on. What's inside that fence? That's a wood fence you have. Little playground equipment.
Yeah, built a playground back there. So for their kids, when their kids come to visit, they got a place for them.
Oh, that's great. And then I noticed on the opposite side of your house, the ground is being prepared for something. What do you got going out there?
We're gonna put a big garden out there.
Oh, that's right. It's a garden. You told me that. Nothing fun, just a garden. Okay.
Right.
But that's good. Yeah.
So we got the chickens out there to be able to it's rehabilitative for the guys to be able to have. We're just going to keep 4, and that's it. We went through the town to do that and everything, and just to have that to help them protect life, value life, be a part of that, and then so with the animals, and then with the big garden on the side there, we're going to be able to help. They're going to have their own little section of the guys to be able to take care of.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Have you and Danielle been able to immerse yourself in the community at all and make new friends, or have you just been so busy and entrenched in what you're doing here that that's been difficult?
We haven't got out into the community.
It's a small community.
Yeah,
you need to get out.
Yeah. We haven't got out so much, but a lot has come in to help. A lot of different places. You know, a lot of, like I said, we go to Redemption Christian Church on Sundays, and a lot of the people that go there, they help out here. But a lot of the different places around the community, the Catholic Church, and just a lot of different organizations and places just really have been a real blessing and help to us. You know?
Yeah. Hope you do feel that, because it is a very caring community, very helpful community, and I think. Don't get me wrong, this isn't just getting the word out. Your word is out, obviously.
Right.
But the more people who know about what you're doing and your mission, and would I'm sure like to invest it in, not so much financially, but in helping.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that's working out for you a great deal. Tell me about the grounds a little bit. What type of, what do you have here? Maybe half an acre?
It's an acre.
It's an acre. What happens when you outgrow that?
And that's
coming, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what's happening. So we just want to, like I said, we're going from 12 to 8. I mean 12 to 20, and then we're gonna just keep this going probably at the 20, and then we'll see what happens.
Because there's not much more you can do here, but like you said, we other houses, and
we're definitely not going to be a pile up kind of place. We want to be quality over quantity. So if and when we do expand, it'll be at different locations to do the you know, because we have a lot of really great systems in place, a lot of programming, a database. Like we got a well-oiled machine going on here that we really want to be able to help people in with the quality and do it well and track it all for the courts and all the people that want to know exactly what we're doing.
Landon Mathias. Obviously, Landon was involved in a tragic accident that we didn't know how it would turn out. It looks like he's going to be fine. A little ways to go, but he's going to be fine. But he talked about in the interview we had with him how important you and Behind the Wire Ministries was to him. And I don't really know why. I mean, what's the connection? Not just you and Landon, but he felt so strong about it that he wanted to come by, and he wants to come by and help every chance he gets. But
Mhm.
how did you and Landon hook up?
Well, his mother, Tanya,
Hmm.
is friends with people that were coming here and
Okay.
volunteering here, and then she got here and she started helping out
Yeah.
and just started forming a relationship with the residents and just becoming a kind face, and helpful person here. And then, Landon started showing up here and there, and then
Hmm.
he'd start pulling up on his golf cart and
Yeah.
just start hanging out. And then they're out there kicking hacky sack
Hmm.
with the guys,
Yeah.
and then they're just, doing things together, hanging out, and just kind of forming a friendship. But it all began with his mother just coming here,
Hmm.
just helping out, and
But what a great testament he had when he talked about that, because that was completely out of the blue to me. I'd already talked to you a little bit about possibly doing this, and then he mentions that,
Mhm.
and I'm like, wow, what a great connection for a 16-year-old kid,
Right.
and what a testament that is to him to want to be involved. And I believe, if I remember right, he said one of the first phone calls he made maybe was to here to some of your people
Yeah, it was his first phone call.
after the
Yeah,
surgery.
yeah. As soon as when he woke up and just started coming to, and his first, connection that he wanted to make when he was, going to make his
Hmm.
first phone call, it was out here to the guys
Yeah, it's
because the
amazing.
relationship, and now it's even strengthened because now they're both, the guys here they're going through a struggle. They're battling through to get on the other side of things that's happened to their lives, and they're inspiring each other.
Yeah, and even Landon made that point, which is amazing to me. Again, a 16-year-old kid is able to think about those sort of things.
Yeah.
But so are certainly continued prayers for Landon. What the forum's yours right now. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that I didn't ask, or that you want to get the word out to that we just didn't in the time that we had?
I would just say that we are a 9 month to 2 year program, and our target audience is men that are coming out of incarceration at this season of our organization. That's our target, but we're open for others that may be not incarcerated physically, but maybe they're incarcerated in some type of cycle, and they need help. But we are here in the community to help those people, and we want to help people make the transition from living that destructive life and whatever that cycle is, into helping them become productive people, the people that can be an addition to the community, the people that I believe that they were born to be. My wife and I, that we believe they were born to be an addition, they were to be productive, and we want to help them in any way that we can. And we're here in the community, and we want to add to the community as a group, and we also want to complement the community in whatever ways that we can. So we're here and we're available. Our guys are here to be able to help. We're helping them, but they also want to be a help into the community as well. So, I mean, I think that would be the underlying thing. And we're putting our best foot forward. It's still going to be a step of faith on the guys that we're bringing here. So don't be nervous. Don't be nervous because a lot of these guys are from here. And
Yeah, they're
so
going to be in the area regardless,
right.
right?
So we want to help them
Yeah.
make the transition to be who we believe that they were born to be.
Scott, thank you so much.
You got it.
Scott Highberger, founder Behind the Wire Ministries, movie producer, Pardoned by Grace, author Behind the Wire, A Prisoner's Journey to the Pulpit, and doing great things. And we wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you.
Scott Highberger, our Indiana neighbor. Thank you for watching.